Welcome everybody. I'm Bolivia. I'm here with the mid-season power rankings for the Sunrise Draft League. So, the way that we're going to be doing this is a little bit different than last time with Drolo, who unfortunately I'm just going to be doing it by myself. So, okay. There's a lot on your screen right now, I know. Sorry, Shandy, you're spoiled. You're in last place. You already knew that. So, okay. Right here is my ranking. Um, and right here is Datboy's ranking. So, owner, admin, we both ranked the teams 16 down to 1. As you can see, Datboy ranked Shandy one higher than I did, so his X factor is going to be +1. The X factor is how far away Datboy's rank is from mine. So you maybe want a better X factor if you want Datboy to have ranked you higher. But a negative X factor means I ranked you higher, so you're actually higher on the list if you have a negative X factor. But yeah, the X factor is just sort of something more fun. Something else that's new is down here. You've got the change from the preseason power rankings to the mid-season power rankings. As you can see, Shandy was actually 12th, so they've gone down 4, or -4. Yeah, so that's basically our example. Now, I'm just going to go right ahead and get into this team. This team has a lot of really good Pokemon with heinously bad synergy. Shandy is not really battled well as well. I mean, they lost week 1 to DMBs, and then they lost week 2 to Datboy, so yeah, that's what transpired. After that, they kind of just cashed in the chips and miffed up their team. They used to have Vaporeon. Now there's not even a freaking water type, let alone a bulky water type, which is always a necessity on your team. Breloom, Mienshao, Ferrothorn are 3 Pokemon I love in Draft League, but definitely not together. Breloom shares types with Mienshao and Ferrothorn. Both Pokemon are Leech Seed users as well. So they kind of overlap in what they want to do. Same thing with Inkay. Inkay doesn't really have a place on this team with Grumpig there. You can get another Pokemon like maybe a water type. Yeah, in terms of offensive capabilities, in terms of the physical side, you're really focused on this Charizard X to do most of your breaking, your cleaning. You actually have a few good physical breakers, Mamo, Mienshao, Breloom. The defensive backbone of this team is just okay. You have Ferrothorn and Diancie there. And you've got a lot of 4 times weaknesses on this team as well. A 4 times weakness to flying, a 4 times weakness to rock, a 4 times weakness to bug, fire, steel, ground. I mean, the list just goes on. This team is not that good. Shandy's 0-4. I think he has already stated that he's kind of just cashed in for this year. He doesn't really care about the league. He likes the community, obviously, but like he's not really like, because basically he'd have to win his next 5 straight. He'd also have to have the other people in his division lose a bunch of unnecessary games. It's unlikely he makes the playoffs with this start. So, you know, it's a little unfortunate, but this is the worst team for those reasons. Yeah, basically he traded all of his good stuff to Datboy in an effort to get him to do well. And we'll get into Datboy much later. Alright, that's all I really want to talk about with Shandy. I know I'm kind of going fast, but some of these 0-4 teams I don't want to spend as much time on just because they're 0-4. Although, next up we have Bees, who's actually gone up from 16th to 15th. +1, which is pretty cool. His X Factor is -1. Datboy has him ranked as the worst team. So not many changes have taken place with this team. I know he added Flygon, and I think that's the only change he actually made. So he's 0-4. These 2 teams actually play each other sometime today, which is pretty dope. I don't know who's going to win. But okay. He did not do anything about the bad synergy between Gren and Tapu Fini and Omastar and Kingler. He still has two Sheer Force users, which is interesting. Charjabug is actually not that bad. Charjabug's pretty dope. Mega Glalie actually been putting in fine work for bees, which I think is pretty interesting. But yeah, this team still has a lot of holes. The Wish support is just Healing Wish with Lottie, which you don't really want to bring. Two Psychic types, four Water types, even with Gren having access to Protein. You're missing some important types like Flying, Poison, etc. that aren't on this team. Also, Bees as a battler. I mean, his division is probably definitely the toughest division. Especially since Record Man was playing well back when these two played. Well, I like this song. Yeah, he's got a tough division. I think he has a chance to beat Shandy. He played DMBs and Jamal, Lin, and Record Man, which probably were very tough games. Those three. I mean, those are all pretty good teams. But now he's playing Shandy, who's 0-4. We'll see how that game boils down. But I really don't like this team. It's not really changed since the last time I talked about it, which was just the Flygon for the Emboar. There's just a lot wrong with this team that I've already mentioned. I think he needed to make a lot of swaps during free agency grace period. That's basically all I have. He's got a tough division. He has a pretty low chance of making the playoffs. He has improved, but that's really only just because Shandy's team is worse. Omastar needs to come to a bit more games. You might be able to cheese with Shell Smash one week. Yeah, this team really struggles, especially since his next two games are against Helix and Datboy, who are both pretty good. Let's move on to the 14th place team, which is Tiny. Tiny actually started off really strong, beating Piggy Man, who is now replaced by Woex. But since then, he has lost 4 straight. And his team has kind of changed around a bit as well. He ditched the Suicune for the Sylveon, and he got Alamomola, so 2 Wish Passing Water types. It was pretty interesting. By all intents and purposes, this team shouldn't actually be that bad. He's got Alamomola, which is a great Pokemon in draft. Mega Scizors build around nicely. He's got a few separate ways to discourage those fire types with Minior, with Alamomola. But that actually is part of the problem. He's got another weakness to fire, another weakness to fire, another weakness to fire. Yeah, this thing can get thick fat, which helps for sure. But it's also weak to fire, so it's only neutral. And yeah, you really don't want to have a fire type in because you'll get earthquaked. But okay, let's get back to the rest of the team and sort of how the battles have gone. He's lost to some teams that are also struggling at the moment, like Drolo. I know he lost to. And the rest of his division is kind of easy. He beat Woex's team, but Skeet and Dark Sam. Well, actually, Skeet and Dark Sam are both good, so I don't really know what I'm talking about. Okay. Something else about this team is your fastest is like Talonflame and then Zoroark, which is a pretty significant speed gap. You don't really have much special attackers outside of certain Lucario sets and the Rotom Cut and the Zoroark, which is going to be running Specs. So yeah, there's a lot wrong with this team. As I said with Bees' team earlier, there's no poison type. You have 2 Pokemon with very similar, like, what they want to do in Sylveon and Alamomola, who are just going to wish and protect. And also, Tiny's battling has been a bit like has left a bit to be desired. Because honestly, I think this team could do a bit better, um, especially versus some of the other teams. But his battling is pretty bad. So yeah, he's 1-4. Up next, I'm gonna talk about Drolo, also 1-4. Coach of the Chicago Blues. He's got the lowest, or the second lowest change so far. He went from 10th to 13th. This team got a lot worse over Grace, which is different from most other people. The main bad move he made was he dropped Halucha for Galarian Zapdos. And he kind of switched his game plan to where now he has like three separate gimmicks really that don't really mesh well. And he's got a really bad lack of special attack in prowess because like physical doesn't really want to attack. Physical can be either physical. And then special can be special. Not even. So you've got like 3.5 special attacking Pokemon, and you really want like 5 or 4 at the least. And even then, Doublade, Heliolisk, really, like those are your big special attacking Pokemon. Obviously, it's not ideal. But yeah, let's get into the strengths of this team. So Galarian Zapdos works really well with Araquanid because they can't really defog. And then you have Doublade to block the Rapid Spin. So it's very difficult to clear hazards versus this team. This is the first team on the list that I've actually played. And I can tell you that I just let him get the webs up, to be completely honest. I didn't really care. Because this team, you know, you'd think that you'd have some good, like, breaking power with Bulu, with Druddigon, with Zardwy, with Doublade, with Heliolisk, with Mudsdale. But no, I just kind of, like, mowed this team, to be completely honest. He does not have a good defensive backbone as well. A lot of his defensive Pokemon don't heal well, with the exception of Cresselia. Like, that's the big weakness with Garbodor as a defensive Pokemon, the big weakness with Druddigon. And yeah, they can get stuff from grassy terrain, but, like, grassy terrain plus Mudsdale, is that even, like, good? This team does set up the hazards really well. You got webs, good rocker. Does it clear the hazards the best? No, not really. I don't even know if Zapdos gets defog or like what here gets rapid spin, but yeah, hazard clear versus team seems very like bad, to be honest. I would have much preferred if he kept the gimmicks to 2 instead of 3, and he just kind of focused more on building around the grassy terrain plus the sun, instead of adding this trick room angle with Cresselia and this webs angle with Araquanid. It kind of feels like he's overwhelmed in prep. Heliolisk has actually been really good for him, though. I know that. He's brought Dry Skin. He's brought Solar Power. Both have put in work. I know versus me, he brought a Banded Liepard with Play Rough, which was really awesome to see. So he's a creative builder. I think he's a little wet behind the ears. Like, he'll improve as the seasons go on and time goes on. But, yeah, I can't rank him higher than this. He's 1-4, and I think he's on the lower end of 1-win teams. Let's move on to Nest. -4. He was actually ranked in the top half at 8th, and now he's down to 12th. Something I should mention. Dat Boy has Tiny at 13th and Drolo at 14th, so we're flip-flopped on those again. But for Nest, we actually both agree Nest should be 12th. Okay. Let me talk about Nest's team. He has made a lot of changes, but the front 5 have stayed the same. This is a good front 5. Lando, Melmetal, Pexcooch, Omega Sableye. His team was originally abhorrently beefy. And yeah, Licky Licky is beefy as well. But I really think that these 5 leave a lot to be desired. Yeah, Surfetched is cool and all, but like, it doesn't really work here. I think you need to build more upon the defensive core that you have And then also get rid of Jumpluff, get rid of Mime Galar, get rid of Slurpuff, and add some more special breakers with Delphox. Because you have 2 physicals and then 4 walls. Your only special breaker that like can feasibly run choice specs is Delphox. Goodra running specs is like oops. I really don't think Goodra running specs is a good idea. Um but yeah, let's talk about Nest's games. Nest actually beat Drolo, that's why Nest is ranked above. We're actually going to see some people who have won games but are ranked below just because of how I feel about their teams. But yeah, this team is actually not that bad. Aside from the big special weakness, he's got good types. Great synergy with this only being weak to Fairy, but you have 2 great Fairy checks here. Um, Fairy Dra- Fairy Dragon Steel Core is all good. Lando T is a great Pokemon in draft. Um, Combined with Mega Sableye, it's the bane of all physical attackers' existences with these 3. He's still pretty weak to a fairy with fire coverage, as I exploited during his game, especially without the Galarian Slowbro as an added check. Like, for example, Gardevoir Mega completely obliterated his team if it weren't for Poison with Gudra. Jumpluff is a cool Pokemon, but I really don't know what it does. I think you can find a much better Grass type that fits with your team, especially since you're doubling up on the 4 times Ice Week. So something like Freeze Dry really has a field day versus your team. But yeah, let's talk about Nest's games. Week 1, I beat Nest, and then week 2, he beat Drolo. So Nest beat Drolo. That's his 1 win though, because he's lost to, I believe he lost to Skeet today, and it's not updated here, but he's actually 1-4 now. But yeah, he's just kind of a little narrow-minded when it comes to building. Like, I remember talking with him, and he's going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be able to set up Belly Jump turn 1 with Slurpuff and Sweep. He'll have nothing for it. But the problem with that is that you really want to have your sweepers towards the late game. As like your game plan. Because, yeah, I think Slurpuff ended up not doing too well that game. But, okay. This team is a bit better. It's definitely better than the other 4 we've mentioned, just in terms of a solid team setup. I just think Nest's battling skills and like game plans leave a bit to be desired, and that's something he can learn as he continues to play in draft leagues, which I know he's in the NDA as well. That's really all I have to say about this team. We're gonna move on to Woex, the best 1-4 team in both mine and Datboy's opinion. The team completely flipped from when Piggyman used to own this team. I actually think it got better than when Piggyman owned it. It's a pretty slick rain team. You've got 2 4 times fire weaknesses, which are halved from the rain from Politoed. As for how well they synergize, they really just don't. But we can get into that later. This team has a lot of type holes, but that's kind of what you're in for with Rain. I think absolutely you want to drop Poliwrath for Kabutops here if you can afford it, because Kabutops doesn't double up on fighting with Heracross and gets Swift Swim still. So I think Kabutops is like significantly better here. One thing I'd also like to mention is he does not deal well with steel types for the Mega Altaria. His good steel type check is like Heracross. So, excuse me, something like Aegislash is just going to obliterate this team, to be completely frank. Politoed has put in a lot of work. I know Woex likes Politoed. It's brought that good old Perish trapping set that is like pretty underrated in draft, if I'm being completely honest. I really like what he's done with Politoed as well. And I know that the one game he lost was versus Phoenix, who is much later on this list, to be completely honest. Phoenix, a proven good battler. But okay, let's talk about some some interesting aspects with this team. Um, yeah. So Honchkrow is a mid Pokemon. The Hazard Clear here is pretty mid as well. I know Malt gets Defog, but you really don't want to be running that. Kartana gets Defog, but you don't really want to be running that as well. Um, I also think Kartana's like pretty bad in draft, to be completely honest. It's really easy to prepare for it with like a good defensive check, like a grass type, like Tangrowth with Rocky Helmet that just punishes it for free every time. Escavalier as well seems a bit out of place. You already have the Steel type, so you're doubling up. Yeah, I get that you like the water, the rain having the fire type damage, but like they're both strong physical attacking Pokemon with similar types. I don't really think they work well together. One's fast, one's slow, I suppose, but like Raikou's a great Pokemon in draft. Fast electric type, you always want one of those. It works well in rain as well because it can thunder. So Raikou's definitely good here. Kingdraw, obviously. Poliwrath, obviously. Cryogonal, obviously. Weezing Galar, most overrated Pokemon in draft. Terrible. Also doubles up on fairies with Mega Altaria. So it's kind of like just bad here, to be honest. You can get another poison type for sure. But yeah, Woix has only been here for a short time, and he already has a pretty good win versus, I think, Drolo is who he beat. Yeah, I think Drolo is who his first win is versus, but we will see how Woix does in the rest of the league. He's definitely the least proven battler here because he just took over. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about the 1 in 4 teams. The 1 in 4 teams. Oh, sorry, forgot about one. Haha, Dat Boy, who ranks himself pretty highly. Um, yeah, we'll talk about this team in a second. But yeah, humongous drop from the second place crazy rain team with Coco to now he's in a measly 10th. Yes, Coco Celesteela is a great core because you have a steel type that's immune to ground, so you build your Fairy Dragon Steel, and you also help with the crippling ground weakness that Coco has. Yeah, no hidden power hurts Coco a bit, same with no rising voltage. Um, but you know, he really is just like really piling on with those electric types. I don't know what Thunderous T is doing here. I think Thunderous T is completely useless here. You already have your strong, hard hitting on the special side electric type with Coco and the electric terrains hitting Thunderbolts. And I suppose you could be like, I would like my Tapu Koko to be using moves with I'd like my Thunderous T to be using moves in the electric terrain from Tapu Koko, but like Hawlucha is available because Driller dropped it, and you can easily pick up Tapu. You can easily pick up Hawlucha, and it's not even bad because it doesn't share any weaknesses besides electric with the Celesteela because is it weak to ice? You know, fighting in ice like is a type matchup I'll never understand. But yeah, you just drop the hit. I know he's out of free agencies, so we could have considered this earlier. But you drop the Hitmonchan, you get the Hawlucha. All of a sudden, you have Coco Lucha alongside Celesteela, alongside the Mega Garchomp with the great defensive backbone from Vaporeon, and you have Baton Pass, Prankster, Meowstic. This team would be like unstoppable, I would reckon. Marowak Alola and the Mega Garchomp like webs and Trick Room support, which is not here. I know Roserade is really good with it because you get to put up the toxic spikes, and that helps whittle things for this guy to break, but I really don't see, like, where he's going with this team. Obviously, it's much better than all of these ones we've covered. This is like it's a significant margin better than like this. Wox is kind of like hanging with it, but this team's good for sure. Cannot be like understated. Crazy Pokemon in draft. Times 4 fighting resist is kind of helped by a fighting immunity and Alola Whack, and then a few good resists over here. Um, yeah, I don't know what's holding him back. I don't. His three losses, I really just think are from bad prep, like not having Drizzle on Pelipper, getting exposed by Munchlax, which we'll talk about soon. Um, but yeah, I really think that he still has a chance if he beats Record Man this week, because then he'll be at 2-3. Helix is at 3-2, so he'll only be one game behind. Um, and they're up against the hardest division, which is Darkrai North. So Helix has a chance to lose if he can pull out some big wins versus Jamal. To be honest, he has to beat Jamal to stand a chance of making playoffs. But it's definitely possible with this team. He's just got to win a few key games. His X Factor is +2 because Datboy likes his team, but he has gone significantly down. This is a pretty sad fall from grace from that epic rain team that he had. But yeah, Coco Celesteela is pretty cool. Let's move on. Oh, forgot to mention Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff sucks. Record Man, another big fall from grace from third place to ninth place. Started off the league very strong with convincing 2-0 wins and Mega Aerodactyl putting in the finest of work. But then disaster struck and he was 6-0'd by Jamal's Corviknight and he was 6-0'd by a Munchlax, which is his own uh, mascot. Oh, how poetic. And he forfeited twice too. Record Man, I'm not sure what exactly is going on with. Oh no. No! I spoiled Skeet City in 8th! Okay, so I guess we'll tackle these two together. 2-2 teams. Actually, Skeet's 3-2 now. But I totally flubbed. Okay. Ha! Let's mention now that from this point on, it's all 2-2 teams. I think every team from that point on is a significant shot, like, better than the teams before it. So, like, yeah. These three teams are like kind of in the hunt. So I guess we'll tackle these two together. Sorry, I got a little trigger happy with my buttons, and I spoiled Skeet City, who is in 8th place. Should be 3-2. They played today. But okay, back to Datboy in Bolivia. I ranked him 9th. Record Man ranked Datboy ranked him 10th. For Record Man, -6, -1. Same thing here, -1. Only -3. The team actually didn't really change once Skeet took over for Epic Pants. Okay, so these two teams, very interesting stories. Okay, let's talk about Record Man first. Sorry, Skeet, I spoiled your placement, but I'll get back to you once I'm done with Record Man. So Record Man got 6-0 twice, so his differential is abhorrent, even though he's 2-2. And this is really interesting. This team seems so good on paper. Clef QB with Rotom Wash and Bronzong. And you don't even have to. You can run Heat Proof Bronzong because you have a Levitate Mon right here, and a Flying type. Like this team seems so good on paper, and like you have great support Mons like Espeon, Runerigus, Girder. This team seems really good, but he's just been 6-0 twice. I do not think he has the mentality to continue playing up to like the form of his first 2 weeks where because after those two 6-0s, I think he's just completely crushed. He's had a hard time scheduling due to his time zone. It might even take the forfeit loss here because today's the last day to play his Week 5 match, and we've heard nothing from him. So it's very possible that he just drops from the league. I feel like I'm dissing him a lot. His team's very good. If he could regain composure and his front office can help lead him to a playoff berth, I think he has the potential to go far, like semis or maybe even finals, if he's playing in tip-top shape. But as it stands, he's not even going to make playoffs because he's about to be 2-3 and Lin is 3-2. Okay, I'm talking a lot. Got two Trick Room setters in the Bronzong and the Runerigus. You have potential for a Trick Room sweep in stuff like Girder and potentially Clefable and like a min speed Kyurem Black. But you also have a big speed threat in Mega Aerodactyl, who is just obscenely fast. And oh yeah, Muck's a great Trick Room sweeper as well. Um, it's just a great Pokemon in general. Super good type. Um, but yeah, this team is really good. He hasn't made any adjustments since last time. The problem with the team is just that Record Man's not playing well, and he's taking some 6-0 losses to some Pokemon that should be easy to deal with. Like, I really like Haze and I really like Whirlwind on this team. If you're worried about a Pokemon setting up, then bring one of those. It's a great like way to get rid of these Pokemon. But like Belly Drum Stockpile gets obliterated. Belly Drum Stockpile Rest Body Slam was this set, which gets beaten by Runerigas 6-0. But it wasn't there. Yeah, -6. Wasn't third, now he's in ninth. Bad mentality. Great team. Next up is Skeet, who I spoiled earlier, but this team is obscene. This team is really good. He loves his back five. I really don't know what Electivire is doing here because I think he loves Raichu. And he's got some really cool techs like Rain Dance with Haunter or Raichu into the Ludicolo, which is just a great Pokemon. Obviously, you prefer it on full rain, but Lavi, I suppose. Tornti is a great Pokemon. Victini is good. Mega Diancie, like these, you'd think that he'd be better. He is 3-2. His only losses are when he lost as Epic Pants and when I beat him. And our game was very close. Um, yeah, I think our game actually came down to I misplayed but got lucky with a roll. But yeah, the times four steel type weakness is really helped by the flying and fire types, and this is just a times four steel resist. This is weak to ground, so is this. It's helped by Torn, and so is this, and so are both of these. But it's helped by the grassy terrain having all like earthquakes, which is really helpful, and you have an immunity here as well. Avalugg is a very underrated Pokemon in draft because it's very bulky. Comfy is good as well. I don't know if this team gets wish support. Maybe Comfy does. Maybe this guy does. But if it does, wish support is really good here as well because you don't have a lot of stuff that can recover naturally. It's only like regenerator here. Uh, if this team could use Z moves, it would be the best in the draft because you have Z Celebrate Victini and Z Torn with Nasty Plot, which are both ridiculous. But yeah, that's just kind of like there's still some holes with this team. Two fairy types, two electric types. You're missing out on a ground type, which is like really important. So you have nothing to stop like the good electric spam aside from the two like electric immunities here, which are like pseudo electric immunities. And are they even coming to every game? And you know, you get into a lot. There's also no dark type here, which is also important. Stuff like ghost spam looks really good here. No normal type. Does he even have a ghost resist? I don't know if fairy resist ghosts. Yeah, but no, yeah, he's still got a few weaknesses, but definitely a strong team. And Skeet seems like a strong player as well. He's the closest to have beaten me out of everybody here. So, good stuff to Skeet. Keep up the good work. He's projected to make playoffs, maybe because of his easy conference. Oh, yeah. I'm just going to come out and say it right now. The order of how good the conferences are, you have. Okay, oops. So you have Darkrai Conference and Naganadel Conference. So Naganadel North is by far the easiest. Then Naganadel South, which is mine. Then Darkrai South is the second hardest. Darkrai North is the hardest. Um, we're gonna get more into strength of schedule when I talk about the 3-win teams and the 4-win teams in a minute. But let's move on. Oh, by the way, this team's 3-2, so like this is like the only 2-win team actually, which is interesting. Unless that boy gets the forfeit win, and then these two are the only 2-win teams. He just won, so okay. Now we're moving on into like the serious contenders: 3-win, 4-win, and 5-win teams. So I think this is the worst 3-win team. Dapboy agrees. Ninth, eighth, -1 because Dapboy likes his own team better than this, but that's just bias. Um, let's move on to the seventh ranked team, Lynn. The first significant gain from our preseason power rankings. Probably the team we were most wrong about is Lynn, who was projected to make playoffs after two ugly losses to some strong teams. He has beaten, I believe, Helix, Shandy, and Bees. So three good wins in a row. He is the second best 3-win team. Sorry, I'm yawning. Let's talk about the obvious good. You got two potent web setters and something all hyper offense teams need, but not many hyper offense teams use, is the defog deterrent. And he's got a fantastic defog deterrent in Superior because when you try to defog away the webs, it will get the evasion boost due to contrary. Um, Something else I really like about this team is he has Magneton to trap steals for stuff like Reuniclus. Reuniclus has not yet gotten the chance to run the stored power Calm Mind Acid Armor Recover set. I can't wait for the fact for the game where he does it. He's got a good few ways to get rid of dark types with the Mega Kangaskhan, and the Scrafty, and the funny set with this if he ever decides to run it. You can also run certain Silvally sets that like to beat it, and Togekiss. Togekiss is a great Pokemon in draft with Scarf, Air Slash, Serene Grace having a 60% flinch chance, only beaten by Jirachi, who's on Bees' team, who he beat. Is a very solid team. Jellicent's a great bulky water. Togekiss can pass Wish. Nidoqueen is very underrated in draft as well. Good old Cersei. God, cannot remember the name of the queen from Game of Thrones. There's not really much I want to say about the rest of this team. Basically covered everything. Good team built around Mega Kangaskhan, which is not normally a Pokemon you build around, but because he drafted more balanced, he's got a lot of like threatening tier 2-esque Pokemon rather than a few tier 1s and then a few tier 5s. Like all the Pokemon here pull their own weight, which is pretty cool to see. Okay, so he's lost to Record Man, who's below him, but that's just because of his mentality. Wins versus Helix, and he beat me in preseason, by the way. I was running Baton Pass Ninjask, and I purposefully made some bad moves, hoping the Togekiss wasn't Scarf. I would just win if it wasn't, but obviously it was, so I lost. But he did beat me in preseason. I had made team swaps after, of course, but you know what? That's not really important. I was kind of memeing. He was as well. Okay, but his three important wins are versus Bees, Helix, and Shandy. So the bottom two teams he's beaten. Or sorry, he has not played Shandy yet, I don't think. I think he played Datboy in one. So yeah, it's Datboy, Bees, and Helix. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. Two pretty convincing wins, and he beat Bees. But yeah, Reuniclus, I think, could stand to use a little more support because it's a great Pokemon in draft. Uh, and it's also like the third or fourth threat on this team, which is super helpful. I guess the main thing this team lacks is good like physical and like type diversity in physical Pokemon, because you are normally going to be running Special Nidoqueen. And really, it's just two fighting types and Silvally, which I guess can run any type, but you want to have more diversity than just one Pokemon. Pivot is good on this team as well. Volt switch, parting shot, volt switch, etc. He's not really missing any types except for like fire, but you're able to cover stuff like that with this anyway, so it's no big deal. Alrighty, let's move on to Helix. So these two are both ranked the same by Datboy and I, which is interesting because we just came off of a week where Lin beat Helix. But here's why I think Helix is better. For starters, 6-0 record man with Munchlax. Munchlax is a kill leader, which you never see. That's completely abnormal. Yeah, so really good like support with this team as well, because this team really did not like dark types because of Dragapult and Slowking, but he added a justified user. This team didn't really have longevity outside of Slowking, so he added a Wish Passer. He added a Bad Weber, which hasn't come to any games, and Arceus, which has actually come to more games than he'd probably like to admit, but that's okay. Dragapult, obviously a great Pokemon in draft, combined with Mega Mawile, also a great Pokemon in draft. Both actually pretty versatile if you're good at building. I know he's brought in something obscene, which was Bright Powder's Sandvale Donphan came when he played the Sand Team DMBs, which was really cool. So, creative builder, builds by himself, except for when he's ghosted by Datboy. Rotom Heat is a good Pokemon as well, great for pivot. So you got Teleport, you got Volt Switch, U-Turn, U-Turn, good pivot. His wins are a little less impressive than Lin's as well, which are versus Datboy, Record Man, same, but also Shandy, so I guess one less impressive. How long have I been going for? Let me check the time. Not that bad. We're almost done. Okay, so yeah, this is the best 3-2 team in my opinion. It's very contested between these two, though. I really would like to see a rematch of these two. Because I think the game was ended with Shuckle, like, just winning, and PP stalling the Umbreon, which was really funny. But yeah, I think these two definitely serve to be a rematch. This actually should say -2, sorry, because he was 4th originally, and now he's down to 6th. Yeah, so let's get into the top 5, the 4-win teams or above. I think one of these 5 teams is going to win the league. I really don't see. I mean, you can make the case for one of these two, or maybe Skeet even, but yeah, that's the thing. So these 5 teams, they're all at least 4 wins. They only have 1 loss, or in some cases are undefeated. I'd like to talk about the criteria that went in, because this is like the most important part of the list. How I divided up these 5. So a lot of the way the schedule was made is you play your division first, and then you play your conference, and then you have some fun cross conference games that also for the teams in the hunt kind of like help determine who makes playoffs, who doesn't. So if you're like a 3 or 4 win team going into week 8, they're must win games. But if you're like a 2-win game or a 6-win game team, then there are more chances to meme. Yeah, so sorry, I totally got off tangent. The way that it was made, one team came out on top from each division. So those are the top 4, which means Phoenix is in 5th. The biggest jump from the second to last team in the original PR to now the 5th best team, and this team is the exact same as we saw it. So it turns out that Phoenix proved us all wrong, and yes, it's true. He doesn't have like one superstar on the team, but instead, what he has is a bunch of really good Pokemon, kind of like Lin. It's kind of like Lin taken to an extreme and better battling. Um, you got great Pokemon. Like I know Infernape has had a 4 kill game. Um, Also something to mention: all of his games have been really close, except for like 3 of his wins have been very close, which is funny. Like he barely beat Drolo, he barely beat Nest. Um, Actually, he hasn't played Skeet yet. That's going to be a fun one. And he hasn't played Dark Sam, so he's 2 tough games ahead of him. But he beat Woex and he beat um Tiny. Sorry, I had to adjust something in my throat really quickly. Had to release some tension because starting to clog up. Sorry about that. Anyways, this team has a great defensive backbone in Mandibuzz, Milotic, Florges, which is which I was not expecting these three to synergize so well together. Mega Aggron loves to be past wishes as well, um, which allows it to continue its obscene defensive longevity with like base 230 filter, which is really good. The Zaya Dog is overrated. No! I spoiled it again! You guys saw nothing. We'll talk about that later. So trigger happy with the mouse. But anyway, okay, Alolan Sandslash and Alolan Ninetales is like a very smart pick. Because these two have good hail synergy. And you're gonna be prepping a lot for these because you need to prep for the speed. But there have been a few games this season where Alolan Ninetales has come and not Alolan Sandslash. And it's either set up Veil for something else or just been its own thing. And I think that shows that Phoenix is a pretty strong builder. Um, and he's versatile. I know Orbeetle has cleaned up a game with a calm mindset. I know Infernape has cleaned up a game. Jolteon ended up winning. I think it was Assault Vest or something. But yeah, the reason why this team is in 5th place compared to the other 4-1 teams is one is that all of his wins are versus bottom half teams. Drolo, Nest, Woex, Tiny are 14th, 13th, 12th, and 11th on the power rankings. So he does not have a strong win, and actually the one time he has played a strong team, he got 6-0'd, which was me with Naganadel, which was a sick game. So his next 2 weeks are versus Dark Sam and Skeet City, who are going to be like big tests to see if Phoenix is as good as he's been playing so far, because he's had close wins versus some like subpar teams. So yeah, if he beats Skeet, that'll like cement that he's good, and he could even beat Dark Sam too, which would be pretty dope. But yeah, 5th place. That's agreed upon by both Dat Boy and me. We're gonna move on in a second, but yeah, that's really all I want to say. Let's move on to Dark Sam in 4th place. 4-1. He won 4-0. He just lost this week. So the next 2 teams are both the 4-0 teams that lost, because all 4-0 teams played each other. So spoiler alert: the 2 undefeated teams are number 1 and number 2. And yeah, I kind of just spoiled that. DMBs is number 3. Okay, this team has been really good. Dark Sam is an ingenious battler, who has been putting Megalopony to obscenely good use. Because let me tell you something. I was doing some analysis earlier in the week, I think Friday, and this thing has come to 5 games and has died once, which is crazy, and it has 10 kills as well. It even got a kill versus my match with him this week, which... okay. We know this team is good. Rotom Fridge is great defog support. Gliscor is a such an annoying Pokemon. He has webs, which is really good with Hydreigon. Nihilego is a Pokemon a lot of people under prep for, especially in a lineup with like these front six is really good. Corsola Galar is such an annoying Pokemon. Um because it's just really, really annoying. Um because you have Wisp, Strength Sap, Eviolite. Sorry, I'm tired. One thing I think this team could really benefit from is a justified user, because it's a little weak to knock off because you're super effective getting knocked off. Um, Gliscor does not like its Toxic Orb getting knocked off, nor does Corsola Galar like its Eviolite getting knocked off, and I was able to exploit this in our game. Rotom Fridge doesn't like the HTB getting knocked off, so I think a justified user would actually really help him because he kind of discourages that Dark type move from being used. If he could somehow fit Keldeo on this team, which I know is asking for a lot considering it's already so good, and he probably wouldn't be able to keep Megalophony, I think this team would be like extremely difficult to face off because you're closing that avenue. But yeah, now let's talk about the reason why this team is fourth. Because as great as Dark Sam has been playing, and he beat, I think he beat Epic Pants. Yeah, he beat Epic Pants. So his wins are versus Nest, Woex when he was Piggy Man, and Tiny. So, and yeah, and Epic Pants. So not the most impressive wins, if I'm being completely honest. And as we're going to see with DMBs, he has a lot stronger wins under his belt. He comes from a harder conference. I think his team's better as well, but actually, I think their teams are equivalent. But yeah, we were wrong about him as well. He went up to fourth. The one time he got tested with another good team, which was this week versus me, and he lost. So for these reasons, I placed DMBs ahead of him. Dapboy did not. Dapboy thinks Dark Sam is the third best team compared to DMBs. But let's just talk about DMBs. I actually have to wrap it up pretty soon, so we'll try to go quickly through these last three. I think this is the best 4-in-1 team. Another improved person who we were wrong about went from 7th to 3rd. This Sand team comes together really nicely. And yeah, he's kind of like really doubled up on types with 3 fairy types, 3 steel types. He's missing some key types as well, like no flying type. No fighting type. No, sorry, he has Hitmonlee. I don't know what I'm saying. Yeah, there's no flying type. No bulky water, but he has Dracovish, which is like an offensive water type. So yeah, this Sand team really comes together nicely. He's really built around Dracovish well, in the sense that you've got a lot of like annoying Pokemon that you have to prep for, and it makes Dracovish that much harder to prepare for. I am a little upset that I won't ever be able to go up against this team until the finals, just based on how the schedule worked out, because I think it'd be really fun. It's definitely a matchup I'd like to see. DMBs is a great battler as well. He does make mistakes under pressure, but he's also pretty clutch. Like he clutched up a win versus Helix, and he beat that boy pretty handedly as well. Gastrodon is a great Pokemon. Sorry, did I just say that he doesn't have a bulky water? He is like one of the best in Gastrodon. I don't know what I'm saying. Wish Pass is something that you'd obviously like to see on this team, or like any team. And Cutie Fly here kind of is just like, you're basically running 10 Mons instead of 11. I don't see how this could ever possibly come to a game. But Shiinotic is a really great Pokemon on this team. It's put in a bunch of work in his games, like sporing and strength sapping things. This thing is so annoying. Klefki, obviously very versatile. It actually can't set up Sandstorm manually. It doesn't get it with the Prankster. But you have T-Tar to set up Sandstorm for the two Sand Rush users. Um, and Tran is just a great Pokemon both in the sand and out of it. Um, we've seen offensive, we've seen defensive. Mega B has cleaned up a few games as well. We haven't yet gotten to see the Unburdened Hitmonlee come into play. One thing I would say is that this team is a bit more physical heavy. A lot of your special attackers are stuff like Palossand, Shiinotic, that don't really like attacking. But Klefki has brought Calm Mind a few times, and Tran is obviously special, so it's not as bad as some of the other teams. Um, hmm, that's really that's really it. This team is great. DMBs is a very analytical player. I want to mention something that he analyzed my lead matchup when he was helping Dark Sam in the front office, and he's like, Bolivia usually leads with a fast pivot and then switches, which I just think is it just shows that he's got such a mind for the game, and I'm really excited to see what the MBs does in the rest of the season because he's new to draft league I think. So is Dark Sam actually. So we got two newbies who are doing really well for themselves. Okay, I just raved about his team for a long time, but you guys are all probably wondering why I ranked this team above Dark Sam, and it's when Dat Boy didn't, and it's because of the strength of his wins. He's beaten Dat Boy, who's 10th. Sorry. He's beaten 10th place Dat Boy. He's beaten 6th place Helix. He beat Shandy, who's not really like that good. He's beat Bees again, kind of just okay. His next two games are versus Record Man and Lin, who are both going to be pretty tough opponents. Um, he's definitely got the harder schedule, is what I'm trying to say. But through the harder schedule, they're both 4-1, and it's for those reasons that I gave DMP's the best 4-1 team spot. But between these three, you can really pick any of them. I think these three teams and then the top two are the teams with the best chance to win at the moment. This is our last week to make any big free agency splashes. But let's move on to the top two, Jamal and me. And who is in first place? Is it me? Hopefully. No, I'm only in second place. Dat Boy has me in first, better than Jamal, which is crazy. Once again, improved from sixth place to second. This team looked a lot better in matches than it did on paper. Mainly because of Storm, Bliss, Seismitoad, Tangela. This core defensive four has been unstoppable to the point where Skarmory and Blissey have both been on kill leaderboards in 2 separate weeks because there have been games where Blissey just gets 3 kills and obliterates the rest of his team because it's able to pass such fat wishes into things like Seismitoad, Skarmory, Urshifu, Mega Gardevoir. And yeah, these last 4 haven't really been all that prevalent. I know Ninjask did come one game and put in okay work. Same with Colossal. It came one game, just did okay. Rotom came one game as well, and just did okay. Naganadel's only been to 3 games, and 2 of those games it has not netted a kill. But we'll talk about that last game in a second. And of course, 3rd rounder Shifu is a steal. 4th round Gardevoir Mega is a steal. These 2 Pokemon not being the primary threat on a team makes it very scary. And yes, based on the structure of the team, I have a hard time bringing all 3 of these guys every week because you have to bring your defensive backbone in a team like this that sets the pace. And that kind of makes it tough for these last 4 Pokemon, aside from Tangela, who's been great. Makes these last guys tough to bring. Seismitoad has put in a bunch of work that I wasn't really expecting, especially versus Dark Sam. It did so well with Ice Punch and just knocking everything in its mother off. Oh, it was fantastic. And yeah, Blissey's obviously the MVP of the team, even if Naganadel got a 6-0. I can't wait to use more fun Naganadel sets in the future. Especially now that since I'm 5-0 and a good 4 wins above Nest and Drolo with 4 games left in the season, I have a hard time believing that I'm not going to make the playoffs, so I'll be able to use some more fun things in the future. Now let's get into why I am not ranked number one, despite the fact that Datboy has me there. One, I think it would be biased to put me in number one. But two, despite the fact that in my opinion I have the stronger schedule, like I have the stronger like wins versus better opponents, I think I have the weaker performances. I think through the games Jamal has played better than me, even if he hasn't won by as much. Now, I 6-0'd the number 5 team and I 5-0'd the number 4 team. Those are both very impressive. But the 6-0 versus Phoenix was just kind of luck that he didn't really have anything for Naganadel. And yes, I was able to see that and I was able to build effectively Eevee, so the piece boost was for my speed after the nasty plot, and I had the correct coverage for everything. And Dark Sam was not playing at his best, even though I didn't knock off the Toxic Orb turn 1 with Seismitoad, which was a definite misplay. I put myself in a pretty strong position where he had nothing to defeat Urshifu after a certain portion in time. And the Helmet Skarmory really put in a number versus Megalopony, so I was never really scared of that. But I also have wins versus Nest, Skeet, and Drolo. Skeet's in the top 8 as well, so I have 3 top 8 wins. That's the most out of any team by far. And yet I'm still not number one. There are a few holes with this team, obviously, like the Hazard Clear is a bit suboptimal because you don't really want to be running Rapid Spin Colossal because it doesn't get good recovery, and Defog Ninjask is also not really a good deal. Rotom gets Defog, which I actually haven't run yet. But if I wanted a Defog Rotom, I might be able to swap it out for like Rotom Fan, maybe. You know, I might actually do that. Maybe swap around for something else besides Ninjask and then Rotom Fan. Just, you know, I'm actually, now that I'm saying that, I'm going to consider it. But yeah, let's move on to the number 1 team, Jamal. Started at number 1, is still at number 1, although Datboy has him at number 2. This team is just unstoppable. And let's just ignore these last 4, to be honest. Although we can also talk about Kangaskhan, and Marshtomp has come to a few games, but it doesn't really do much, to be completely honest. Just sets up rocks. It's no Goddard War Turtle that hasn't come to any games. That's besides the point. Let's talk about these front 7. The Lele Zam core is obscene beyond belief. Of course, those Psychic Terrain, wait a minute. I just realized that Jamal can get Hawlucha if he wants to, because that's available. I should not have said that out loud. Oh no. We're all doomed. But I actually don't think Jamal likes Hawlucha on a team like this, because I think Jamal is more of like a methodical player, just based off this team. He's got a bit of bulky options like Corviknight, like Incineroar, like Lantern, like Buzzwole, like his 3 Eviolite users. Yeah, this team's one weakness is that it's susceptible to knockoff, because your one knockoff, the one thing that doesn't get knocked off is weak to knockoff. So that's definitely something, you know, Lantern likes its item, Incineroar likes its item, Corviknight likes its item, and then 3 Eviolite users definitely like their items. But Buzzwole is a ×4 resist, but even Buzzwole likes its item. So that's the one weakness with this team. This team is really good besides. Garchomp has gotten fantastic results. Corviknight had a 6-0, kind of. Yeah, I think Corviknight had the 5-0, actually. But something else got the last kill. And the game was still a 6-0. We'll talk really quickly. Jamal has had some impressive results. He beat Record Band 6-0. He just beat DMBs, which is a top 3 team, in a pretty convincing fashion as well, because he played really well at the end of that, swapping into the Corviknight on the Shiinotic so he could heal up and win with his Corviknight. That was a great display, and he had the exact coverage, because normally Corviknight only runs Brave Bird and body press, but he had both in this specific matchup, which was fantastic for him as it allowed him to body press the Tyranitar and Brave Bird, the Shiinotic, and it was just a great display. So yeah, I mean, like, that was just great building, great battling, great team all together. Even with the fact that Lele did get expanding force and he got some points to move around with, he hasn't even used them, and his team is still number one, which is really impressive. Yeah, I do. Well, I probably will have to play him in the semifinals, assuming everything goes to chalk and nothing drastic changes, and I like lose to Lin or Record Man in the quarterfinals, which is entirely possible. But yeah, that's excuse me, basically it. Thanks for tuning into the power rankings. I'm Bolivia, signing off.